Israel and Iran are engaging in a barrage of fresh strikes. It is a major test for negotiations that President Trump said just yesterday were very close to being done. So we're going to start with a new wave of Iranian missile strikes that were launched towards Israel. This is new video into CNN overnight showing damage inside a home in the West Bank. Now, this follows Israeli strikes on an Iranian petrochemical plant. The IDF said that it hit several targets at that complex. Now, these retaliatory strikes appear to be in defiance of President Trump, who called Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and told him to hold off on striking back. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson said Monday that the U.S., quote, bears responsibility for Israel's actions, going on to say, quote, whatever happens in the region, the direct responsibility of the United States is established, and it will also bear responsibility for the consequences of any escalation. Now, just now on Truth Social, President Trump, just in the last 30 minutes, writing, quote, Israel and Iran must immediately stop shooting. We've got live team coverage throughout the region. We're going to start in Jerusalem with CNN's Oren Liebermann. Oren, can you give us the latest on these strikes so far this morning?
Audie, we just got a briefing a short time ago from an Israeli military official who said that Israel is preparing for the possibility of several days of fighting, and beyond that, the potential for this to become a more prolonged conflict. And that's important because it gives you a sense of what Israel is preparing for. Meanwhile, Tehran has also said they're prepared for a week of conflict. So both Israel and Iran are clearly signaling right now that they're in this for the long haul if that's what this turns into. If it turns into a few days or more of fighting, then they are prepared for that. In fact, it seems the one person who isn't prepared for that is President Donald Trump, who is trying to force through his social media a de-escalation on both sides in that post on Truth Social that you pointed out. That Israeli military official says that since the start of this, which was only about 13 or 14 hours ago or so, Iran has launched some 30 ballistic missiles at Israel in several barrages. Meanwhile, Israel has carried out its own set of strikes on Iran, targeting surface-to-air missiles, as well as that petrochemical facility that you pointed out. That's key because that may mean that energy infrastructure is fair game for Iran. We should keep an eye on the Gulf region to see if Iran carries out strikes on energy infrastructure there. That would, of course, send oil markets and the energy part of this into turmoil as well, or at least has the potential to do so. So that's a very key element to keep an eye on here. Meanwhile, the Houthis in Yemen have also launched at least 2 missiles at Israel. So right now, it seems like we are climbing the escalation ladder potentially quickly, even as Trump tries to impose a ceasefire here. He has done it on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu before when it comes to Gaza and Lebanon and even previous conflicts with Iran, and it seems like he is trying to do so once again.
CNN's Fred Pleitgen is in Tehran. We should note CNN operates in Iran only with the permission of the government, but maintains full editorial control of its reports. Here's Fred's report.
On our rooftop position here overlooking Iran's capital, Tehran, we have been able to hear a couple of very loud thuds that could be explosions, and then also some smaller ones in pretty close succession that might have been anti-aircraft fire. Now, that's not confirmed. It's not exactly clear what that is. However, we do know that the Israelis say that they have been striking targets, as they put it, in Iran's capital, Tehran, but also in other Iranian cities, like, for instance, Isfahan and Tabriz. That's also confirmed by the Iranians. And the Iranians also say, and the Israelis also confirm that Israel has hit a petrochemical facility in the south of Iran. It's very close to the Iraqi border, very close to the city of Basra. The Iranians are saying that the staff of that petrochemical facility has been ordered to evacuate that facility. And the Iranians are also saying that they are hitting back in a major way. They say in retaliation for the attack on that petrochemical facility that they launched ballistic missiles towards a similar facility, they put it, in the Israeli city of Haifa. The Iranians also earlier saying that there had been a wave of Iranian ballistic missile attacks targeting 2 Israeli air bases and specifically radar installations affiliated with those air bases. The Iranians are saying right now their missile forces and generally their forces are in a state of complete readiness, and they are also warning the Israelis to stop their military action. Of course, all of this coming as the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran continues to very much hang in the balance. Iran and the U.S. saying that they are trying to work towards a memorandum of understanding to end the conflict between Iran and the United States, but also to then move towards broader peace talks aimed at achieving a larger peace agreement. The Iranians are saying those talks are in a difficult state. They want some of their frozen assets to be unfrozen immediately. And both sides are acknowledging, of course, right now that especially with these attacks going on, it certainly seems as though that ceasefire and the general situation right now, very volatile. Fred Pleitgen, CNN, Tehran.
Joining us to talk more about the military strategy here is retired Air Force Colonel and CNN military analyst Cedric Leighton. Good morning. So first, I want to talk about this escalation, because people may be hearing about the back and forth between Israel and Hezbollah for many weeks. Why did this particular round of strikes kick off?
Yeah, good morning, Audie. The reason this particular round of strikes kicked off was because the Israelis hit the suburb, the Beirut suburb of Dahya. That's where the Hezbollah has its main headquarters, and there are a lot of Hezbollah personnel, for lack of a better term, in the Dahya neighborhood. So the reason the Iranians basically came to the defense of the Hezbollah entities there was because Hezbollah is basically Iran's main proxy in the region, and they need Hezbollah in order not only to keep an eye on Israel, but also to potentially mount attacks on Israel. So every time that there's destruction to Hezbollah, Iran sees this as not only destruction of Hezbollah, but also of their own forces, even though they are absolutely separate. So this is, in essence, what's going on. They decided, the Iranians decided, that it was a time to respond to the Israeli attacks, and especially one as blatant as the one on Dahya, in their view. And the reason they did that is because they want the ceasefire to cover not just Iran, but also the Lebanese territory, where the Israelis have conducted repeated actions against Hezbollah.
You talked about proxies, and then this also brings me to also the Houthis in Yemen, because there's some reporting there that they were saying they wanted to prevent shipping through the Red Sea, which sounds very familiar to those of us who have been hearing about Iran preventing shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Does this threaten broader conflict? Are we seeing hints of that?
Yeah, there's definitely the possibility that this could widen into a bigger regional conflict, at least. So on the eastern side of the Arabian Peninsula, you have the Strait of Hormuz, which is the area that we've been talking about for quite some time. And then on the western side, you have what's known as the Bab al-Mandeb, and that is that very narrow point between the Red Sea as it empties out into the Indian Ocean. So this is an area where these are so-called choke points, and every time those are cut off, that impacts global shipping, global trade, and it means that prices go up, oil becomes scarcer, and that creates the economic issues that we're seeing in a lot of the world right now.
We hear President Trump framing the U.S. involvement more as precaution, not escalation. I want to play for you something that happened on NBC's Meet the Press. This was before all of this news about this escalation, but here it is.
If you're not specifically calling it a war, would you consider sending some of the troops who are stationed there, who were sent because of Operation Epic Fury there home? No, would you consider sending them home if it's not technically a war?
We don't need as many troops. I think it's just like it's on the to err on the side of caution.
What are we looking at? Is it a kind of carrot and stick, meaning the U.S. is doing the negotiating, but Israel is leaning hard on the military pressure?
Well, potentially. So, it's interesting when you look at President Trump's remarks, they, on the one hand, he's kind of hedging his bets here. He does admit to the possibility of withdrawing some of the troops that are in the Middle East. And I think what he's referring to are the troops that came in addition to the ones that were already stationed in the Middle East. So what he doesn't want to do is withdraw completely from the region, which is actually Iran's goal. So if he withdrew completely from the region, that would satisfy Iran, but it wouldn't protect the Arab Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. So that becomes a critical point right here. He, in essence, really can't withdraw if he doesn't want to show weakness, and that becomes, I think, the critical point right here.
One more thing. We know that these strikes started back earlier in the year. They were U.S.-Israeli joint strikes. The U.S. gives a lot of military support, intelligence support to Israel. So could what we're seeing right now even happen without U.S. support?
It could, and the reason I think we see limited strikes in the western and central parts of Iran, at least so far, is because the Israelis do have a capability to conduct those strikes on their own. They have their own refueling capability, although it's somewhat limited compared to what the U.S. can offer. Generally speaking, if the strikes were much more extensive or repeated over a series of days, then that would probably indicate a greater U.S. involvement. There may be some U.S. involvement, but it is absolutely possible that these strikes are occurring without direct U.S. involvement at the moment.
Okay, that's Colonel Cedric Leighton. Thank you for your insight. Appreciate you.